Can you imagine spending $5.2 million on a baseball card? Well, Rob G did. And today on Sports Card Investor, we're going to ask him why he did it, how he did it, and where all that money came from. My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies. And at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me on my journey to profit from the hobby we all love. Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another episode. And we got a big one today. We've got entrepreneur and actor Rob G coming on Sports Card Investor to tell us why and how he just bought the world's most expensive sports card, $5.2 million for the iconic 1952 Mickey Mantle card in PSA 9. It's going to be a great conversation. And by the way, our Sports Card Investor app, it's not just for modern cards. Look at all the mantles in our Sports Card Investor app. We actually have hundreds and hundreds of vintage cards in this Sports Card Investor app, and we're adding more and more every day. We're building it out to be a massive library of vintage cards. If you have not downloaded this thing yet, what are you waiting for? It's totally free. Go to the App Store on your phone right now and search for Sports Card Investor and download it. And as we're talking about cards today, if you got any cards you need graded, we've got an incredible grading service going right now with PSA where we will submit your cards to PSA for you to get them graded, often with better turnaround and better pricing than you can get on your own. Go to sportscardinvestor.com and click on grading in the main menu bar. All right, guys, let's get going. Let's talk about this record-breaking sale of this mantle. Please join me in welcoming Rob G to the show. Rob, welcome to Sports Card Investor.
Thanks for having me. Honored to be here.
Absolutely. So right off the bat, I gotta ask you, is the CBD business so good that it afforded you to drop $5.2 million on a baseball card? Is that how this came about?
CBD business is obviously really good, but no, I mean, this is the money to buy this card came from, past ventures. I buy and sell businesses similar to buying and selling cards. So it's more from exits from the past.
Okay, I didn't know if it was from that or if you had signed, signed on to be the leading star of, the next Marvel movie that's coming out or something like that.
Not yet, but hopefully they call me. Not yet. We'll see. But, definitely doing a lot of movies in the future. But yeah, the money really is from that, the past stuff, exits and those kind of things and movies.
Yeah, and so I know, and I want to talk obviously about the card, but I'm sure people would be interested in hearing a little more about that because obviously I'm sure it is on many people's bucket lists to be able to get involved with business ventures that, yield them enough capital to be able to, make this type of sports card purchase. So it obviously worked well for you. What are some of the highlights of your, entrepreneurial and acting career that kind of got you to this point?
A lot of things, I sold a tech company. It was a coupon site. So, I typically all come into a business that's doing, let's say, $5 million a year in revenue. EBITDA positive, and then I'll come in as a major shareholder and then grow the hell out of the business and then exit, 2 to 5 years after acquiring it. So similar with a company called CBDFX, incredible business. I invested 4.5 years ago. I think it's public, so I'll just, I put $500,000 for 25% of the business. And, that was a $2 million valuation. And now the business is absolutely on fire. We've got about 100 employees, sold to CVS, Walgreens, sold everywhere, massive valuation. So that's, typically what I'll do. Same, I had a recycling business that I invested in, 2 guys with an incredible idea to disrupt recycling. and came in and just helped throw fuel on the fire and grow it, and then got a great exit. And same with dope. You know, I bought dope 4 years ago for the IP portfolio. I think The name was obviously incredible, and it could be used for a lot of different things. So bought that, and then recently exited the trademark portfolio for clothing. So I retained dope.com, the logo, the social media handles, and the trademarks for other businesses. So we've been working for about 2.5 years and going into CBD, obviously knowing that space very, very well, that that logo and that name just is perfect for, and this, the celebrity following of the brand is great to go into CBD and possibly cannabis in the near future.
That's awesome, man. That's great. And congratulations on your entrepreneurial success. One thing that, one thing I love about entrepreneurship is that it allows you to take chances with really not that much money at play, potentially initially, depending, once you get going, if you start bootstrapping yourself and everything like that. But the upside is enormous. The upside's enormous. And so, good things can break your way, and then you could end up with, businesses that are valued in the millions or tens of millions from just a lot of hustle and bootstrapping in the beginning. And then you can roll in and exit into your next one and your next one and your next one, which is, it sounds exactly what you've done. It sounds like you're a true serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, but there's also risk, right? So a lot of guys will do the spray and pray model. So they'll invest small increments into 100 different businesses, hoping that one business then covers the losses of that 99 others. So there's different models. I'm a more calculated, similar to the Mickey Mantle. Obviously I do have a massive portfolio of cards. But I'm more of a targeted, let's do the data, let's do the, a great analysis instead of owning, tons and tons of things. I like the buying an iconic piece that is irreplaceable that you can really go big with.
Well, that's what you've done. So let's talk a little bit more about the card. I'm curious about the process of buying a card for $5.2 million. I assume you didn't just log onto eBay one night and go to PWCC's store and click the buy now button. I assume it was something a little more than that. So what was that process like?
Honestly, it's the same as buying a $500 card. I mean, there's no difference in the deal than negotiating on a small card versus a big card, So, the only problem is with this card, it's hard to get a hold of. So I think that the only difference is sourcing the deal, sourcing the asset. And I was hunting for rare, great cards, more specifically, obviously this card. And, I had different auction houses and different dealers trying to hunt for rare cards that, that's what I'm into. I really want the rarest assets. And then finally, PWCC, I was, Jesse, who I've been kind of pushing and asking for help on this. One night I was in bed at 11 o'clock and he said, hey, what about we have this Mantle 9. It's the 4th best Mantle in the world. Arguably could be better than some of the 10s, but it definitely the 4th best in the world. And would that be, I think I got it, but it's not going to be for sale. These guys probably won't sell it. These cards, just obviously when somebody has it, it's hard to get it out of their hands. So we talked about it, and you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so we had to go for it. So we reached out and worked out a deal, like any deal, just like with the $500 card, the seller is going to start high and the buyer is going to start lower. And then you just kind of work the deal and get it to the point where you both feel comfortable. And that's what happened.
Yeah,
so,
awesome.
It only took a couple of days. The reason why it took longer was because, we're both trying to negotiate the deal, but it's the same as, it's the same as a $500 or $1,000 card. There's no difference.
There you go. Just add a few zeros on the end, right? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now,
it's a deal. An asset's an asset.
Now, why Mantle? Because what's interesting, you're obviously a younger guy. You never would have seen Mantle play, right? Like, did Mantle? What type of relevancy did Mantle have in your life that would cause you to go for one of his cards versus like Mike Trout or someone like that who is a little more relevant today?
Well, first of all, Mike Trout, if I put $5 million or $4 million into a Mike Trout card, I would be so nervous because every game he plays, he could get hurt. And I would be like, God, please don't pull something or get hurt. Every time he goes out to the bar, is he going to get drunk and drive home? Is he going to do something illegal or say something terrible? You've seen it so many times that these iconic sports figures end up kind of something happens, and it ruins their legacy. But for this kind of investment, ruins their investment value. I mean, a guy bought the Mark McGwire baseball years ago, and he was on the height, and now that card's not worth quite what he paid for it. So there's a lot of things that would just scare the absolute crap out of me, and so I didn't even think about that as a, I wasn't targeting that. The reason why Mantle for me was growing up, that card was so iconic back then. That was the most iconic card when I was collecting as a kid. I had a reproduction of the card in like a thick glass case. All my other cards were at normal top loaders or maybe a couple on the screw tops, but this reproduction was in like the biggest case for me. So even as a kid, that was the most iconic, the coolest card. I didn't know who Honus Wagner was. I don't know him as an adult. The only reason why I knew of the cards was because I got back into cards and I saw that, it was a big card. But personally, I had no connection to that card. It wasn't special to me. The Mickey Mantle 1952 Topps was just always the most iconic card. And so when I jumped back into the hobby, of course, I'm like, man, I got money now. I gotta buy this card. It's something I gotta add to my collection. I bought the 5 just because I wanted it. And then I started, then of course you want a little bit better. And I also started looking at the data. And so I bought a 6. A good buddy is Steve Aoki. He wanted the card. He said that he loves that card. He's got to have it. So I sold it to him for what I paid. And then I had to upgrade. So then I bought an 8. But more and more, I looked at the data. I mean, if you look at other iconic cards in the hobby, you look at, LeBron James is $1,000 in October. Now it's 27. You look at Michael Jordan, high teens, now 200s. You look at Jackie Robinson, 50s, and then 400. You look at Wayne Gretzky. You look at all these iconic cards, and they have more than 10x. Whereas the Mickey Mantle, which is arguably the most iconic, it's the Mona Lisa of sports cards, and that card didn't 10x, and that was one of the only most iconic cards that I didn't see those massive increases in, and I felt like it should have. I mean, why would all these kind of other cards that are not as iconic, that are not as special, not as rare, have these big increases, whereas this one didn't? So I felt that this card was super undervalued and had a massive opportunity for growth. And that's why I decided to infuse $5.2 million into it.
So obviously, you, having done that, you're a believer in the longevity of the sports card hobby, sports card collecting, sports card investing, at least for vintage cards, right? There are those out there who claim that all of those increases you just described this is nothing but a bubble, and that a lot of these cards that have, the LeBron cards that have gone up 10x are going to go back down 10x at some point when the bubble kind of pops. You obviously had the confidence in putting your money into this card, assuming that's not going to happen. What is it that kind of gives you the confidence in this as a long-term investment piece?
I look at this card and cards as a business, right? So, I mean, I collect because I love the hobby, and I've definitely got addicted to it, but you do look at it as a business. So I look at a lot of data. 2016, you had a bubble, essentially. You had some wealthy individuals drive up the prices on some cards, and then it went down afterwards. So I looked at, is this going to happen again? Is this a bubble that's going to pop soon? I do not believe so, because things are a lot different in this particular situation. One, it's in the media almost every day, on records, on just the hobby coming to the forefront. Obviously, my situation, there was even more news that people saw it that maybe didn't see it before. You have celebrities getting into it, athletes getting into it, influencers getting into it. And all of that just continuously grows the hobby and grows the demand, whereas the supply stays the same, especially in, let's say, vintage. So therefore, I don't think there's going to be, of course, there'll be, ups and downs like any market. But I don't think we're in a bubble scenario to where it's going to pop and die drastically. I just think that once people get the bug, which they're getting, it's not something that you lose quickly, and it'll just keep continuously rising. As it's basic economics, supply and demand. More and more people coming in, same supply, the price goes up. So I don't think you're gonna. And it's not like it's 15 cards like it happened in 2016. It's a ton of cards. So I've looked at it. Of course, getting into it and pumping in so much money. I mean, I was in millions and millions of dollars before I bought Mantle. So I definitely looked at the data and, calmed down my addiction, I guess, like, hey, let's slow down, make sure we're thinking properly here and not just having a good time. But personally, I don't. And I haven't watched your videos enough to know how you feel on that, but I should definitely go and do that.
Oh, no, I mean, I absolutely am a big believer in the heat around the sports card hobby and the fact that I think that it's only up from here. I did a video about that a few weeks ago where I just talked about what I think the future held. Now, I do think we're going to go through, peaks and valleys, and there will be little dips along the way. So it's not a forever everything's going up situation. But I think for the most part, it's got a very strong trajectory. Especially with rare cards, I think that there is a lot of speculating that takes place around, modern rookie cards, and some of those are not going to be valuable unless the players really become iconic stars. But I mean, for something like the Mantle you're talking about, I mean, that's a classic historic card that I think will persevere for many years. And actually, speaking of that, you made a great point when you're talking about, the risk associated with buying a really expensive Mike Trout card versus a Mantle or any expensive, current card that, you've got the liability of what that player actually does, which could affect the card value. Do you, though, dabble in modern at all, or are you just strictly, a vintage collector?
I have a diversified portfolio where I look at the current guys as a penny stock, but my percentage of assets into current is very small compared to what I've got into vintage basketball, vintage baseball, vintage even football. But I've got some, not a lot, but nothing super risky or super expensive, nothing like that.
Right. So you're going for more of the high-end pieces that you're buying are more the vintage kind of historic collector pieces, it sounds like.
Yeah, again, how many iconic guys when I was collecting as a child, how many guys that were like my favorite players and they're huge and they're still iconic players, but now if you look at their legacy, it's not what it was. And so for me, I just don't know what's going to happen to these guys. Is news going to come out with them later and it's going to adjust the value? I don't know. So for me, it's just, I'm a safer play guy. I like great assets, iconic pieces of property or ownership and that I don't have to worry about. Oh, is it a bubble? Is it going to go up or down? It's something that, I can hold for 50 years and know I'm going to be okay.
Now, it's been reported that you are going to store this card in PWCC's vault for safekeeping. I'm curious about, I recognize that there's obviously some danger and risk of holding a $5.2 million card in your own presence or possession, but at the same time, you can't show it off to friends as well, right? I guess you're going to show it off to them digitally, but are you going to do like a little tour with this card for some time before it gets stored away, or what are your plans with it?
Yeah, I don't want to just put it in the vault and then never show it to the world or let anybody experience it. I think that's, I didn't come from much. I think it'd be incredible to show it to people that I grew up with or, whatever, something that, maybe wouldn't have the opportunity normally. So figuring it out, I think insurance outside of their vault, I'm working on that and trying to see how to insure it, what the best place to insure it with, and how to do that when it's outside of that vault. And, if it's safe to keep it at my house and I definitely want to experience it, but I also have to ensure that, I'm safe, it's safe. So, just worrying about those things at the moment and I'll figure that out. But ideally, I don't want to just keep it in a vault my whole life and not be able to enjoy it or let other people enjoy it. So yeah, we'll figure something out to where we can do that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I hope you can maybe bring it to the National someday and show it off. I know it will take some security to do that, but that would be really, really cool to see. Rob, let me get you out of here on this. What would it take for you to sell this card? Is it ever going to be up for sale? Is there a number that you have in mind that if offered in the future would make you really consider selling this thing?
I mean, for me, it's a priceless piece of art. It's like there's no. I mean, I know that sounds insane that no number would take it, but right now I don't. I just don't know the number. After the news came out, of course, I had a few offers. One guy came in at $6 million, one guy came in at $8 million. I mean, that's, my family's like, dude, are you crazy? Sell it, take the money and run. But for me at the moment, I just don't think there's maybe, I guess if someone came with maybe 15 mil, I mean, I don't know. But right now it's in pretty strong hands, I'd say.
All right, there you go. So if you got 15 million you want to drop on the Mantle PSA 9, it's Rob G on Instagram. Just send him a direct message and I'm sure you guys can get a deal done. I will just take a small commission for helping orchestrate that here through this show.
I like it. I'll throw you a little bone if that happens.
I appreciate it.
Rob, this has been great, man. Hope to see you at the national or other types of card events in the future and hope to get a glimpse of that Mantle someday.
Can't wait to go to them. I'm excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on, too.
What a fun interview that was. I enjoyed having Rob G on the show. Guys, check out all of the Mantles and all of the other vintage cards in the Sports Card Investor app. Download this in the App Store right now. Search for Sports Card Investor in the App Store. It's totally free. And again, check out our grading service by going to sportscardinvestor.com and clicking grading in the main menu to find out how we submit to you to PSA for better turnaround times and better pricing often than you can get by going to PSA directly. That again is our grading service on sportscardinvestor.com. Thanks so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you back in a couple of days with our next episode. Take care.